Tell, can't show. Frederic and Isabelle gave birth to a baby boy. His name was Jackson. It was Thursday, April 5th, 2114 at 5:07 p.m., when they had enough exist tokens to pay for a modified conscience. This conscience was an amalgamation of their thoughts, fears, dreams, and behaviors, each one costing 1,000 exist tokens. Frederic was at first leery at the idea of producing consciousness, while Isabelle knew right at the start of their relationship all those years ago she wanted an extension of them, a sort of prize to glorify their own matter, or lack thereof. March 24th, 2131. Frederic was in territory 9,743 of 30,000 when he began a dialogue with Bianca, who had been approaching 134 years. It said so at the top of her charcoal-colored profile. In fact, all 521 conscious beings in that territory, including Frederic, had that same charcoal-colored profile. Actually, any being who existed in any territory had that profile look. All 23 million of them, and counting, of course, as with the case of Jackson and others like him. All there was to existence anymore were these 30,000 digital spaces called territories, with each one only able to house at most 1,000 beings at a time. This was because each conscience took up 20 terabytes on average, and 24,000 terabytes were the limit per territory. Before it became strictly sound, each conscience had 80 additional terabytes to them. Rendered physicality not only took up too much space, but would also buffer the realm entirely, all 30,000 territories. As a result, the governmental force at hand went strictly to sound. No more did conscious beings have outer shells. No more did they bear the costume of skin and bone. No more would they have to eat. No more would they have to sleep. No more would they have to thirst for water. No more would they have to breathe for life. Beings could, of course, jump from one territory to another. In sooth, the governmental force highly encouraged it, so much so they implemented exist tokens. These were rewarded to a conscience that occupied a territory for at least 24 hours straight, and none of these territories could be that of the last 5. These exist tokens were divvied out in amounts of 50. Frederic was away from his wife for some time. Both of them had gone off to different territories, hanging in each one for that 24-hour window to claim those tokens. Frederic was approaching hour 24 with 3 minutes left to spare. He was almost 10 for 10 now, and would meet up with Isabelle in just a matter of minutes.
Got any plans tomorrow?
Frederic asked Bianca. All other 519 muted and on temporary ignore.
Existing,
She answered as plainly as anyone would in those days, though her voice still sounded youthful and spry despite her age. That was due to a modification feature added in shortly after physical renders were done away with. Anyone could dictate the tone of their voice with these 3 categories: flow, inflection, and enunciation. However, at a price of 100 exist tokens per category. Nonetheless, one could leave it on default when a conscience was born, or created as some preferred to put it. Default mode was just those 3 categories on an average growth development, meaning at 3 years old, they would sound like an average 3-year-old. At 4 years old, they would sound like an average 4-year-old, and so on. Frederic and Isabelle went with default mode for Jackson. Isabelle especially wanted to mimic the ancestral structure of human shells, how the vocal cords would organically mature way back in the 21st century and before.
Well, same here.
Frederic continued. He went on talking with Bianca, but it was more out of obligation than interest. It was a way to expedite time, to make those 3 minutes flash by like 3 seconds.
how's Jackson?
He's terrific. Going on 17 years here pretty soon.
My little Tiffany is just now approaching 5 years, and
I gotta get going, Bianca. Maybe I'll hear you around at some point.
And just like that, those 3 minutes, which had sped up to 3 seconds, had gone just like that, and Frederic left. Frederic and Isabelle soon met up in Territory 1, the only territory which had unlimited storage. This was the government's space where exist tokens could and would be spent.
Did you get him already?
Isabelle asked Frederic.
Give me a minute. Sometimes they buffer when you leave a territory too quick.
You don't have to give me an attitude.
Give me a break. Existing is hard work.
Frederic and Isabelle together accumulated 1,000 exist tokens, and with that, they could spend 250 on each of them to lengthen their consciences, to extend the expiration date, which was superimposed on all 23 million charcoal-colored profiles. Underneath was a timer, counting down to the second. You see, in those days, a being would need to spend tokens in order to extend their existence. Otherwise, once that timer hit 0, the governmental force permanently deleted that conscience like a finger snap. It was 250 tokens for 30 additional days of being.
Where's Jackson, Fred? He keeps missing these things. He always has his damn timer so low.
I'll speak with him.
It'll be your fault if he gets deleted from the realm. Why did you download your thoughts and fears into him, and I got stuck with giving him my dreams and behaviors?
Because my dad downloaded his fears into me, and that's what shaped me into being self-reliant. Just couple that with my thought process, and science will take care of the rest.
You speak so neutral.
He got your dreams and behaviors.
But fear controls all, Fred.
What does he have to be scared of? We don't have illness anymore. No physical pain. Don't have to work. No possibility of unpredictable death. You only die if you choose to let the time run out.
Suddenly, another conscience joined the territory. Jackson. Both Frederic and Isabelle received a notification in their rectangular profile.
Jackson's here. See? You worry for nothing.
Next, both he and her unignored and unmuted him. And Jackson did the same, who went on with,
Sorry I'm late. I was hanging out with Cynthia.
Did you at least hang out in just one territory?
Yes.
Was it the full 24?
No, I only did for 15. I'll go back and complete it after this.
How many times must we tell you? It has to be a consistent 24-hour stay. If you are to be trusted on your own, you need to take care of the most basic necessity.
You never told me that.
Yes, we have. Numerous times.
Again, can you not be trusted?
Okay, I'll stay in the damn thing for 24 straight. Jesus.
Jackson went on mute afterward, ignoring any further comments made by either of his parents.
Look at his timer, Fred. Look at his timer.
Isabelle pointed out. Frederic couldn't help but break a little of his calmness when he saw right there how long his son had. 2 days, 19 hours, 34 minutes, 23 seconds.
We need to discuss something and make it very clear.
Frederic came down on Jackson as soon as the two of them entered Territory 21-228.
Your mother wants what's best for you, and so do I. We're trying to buy you a conscious sibling. But with us having to spend our tokens on your sorry ass, you're making it extremely difficult.
I don't want to start, Dad. I've now heard this bullshit from both you and Mom.
There must be something to it then. How about you start earning some income yourself? It's not that hard to complete a 24-hour window.
Even though Frederic tried to squash any retort from his son then, speaking in an unpliable manner, Jackson became more averse to his father's demand. However, Jackson did it not out of spite, but rather out of plea.
What's the point, Dad? What is the goddamn point?
It took a moment for Frederic to say anything. The silence he gave off sounded like he felt a cogent smite from his son, as if his custom reality had been shaken with a massive paradigm shift. Though the physical and visual sensations were not anymore, sound still carried emotional weight, and arguably more than ever.
What's going on, Jack?
Frederic never called his son that unless he sensed an urgent feeling. Jackson at once remembered the first time his father addressed him this way. Jackson was 7 years old. The year was 2121. October 3rd, 2121. Jackson's mother had been off chatting with her friends somewhere in a separate territory. He was just with his grandpa and father, who he called at the time Papa and Pops. Papa had been reminiscing about the days long before these days we're discussing now. A damp fragility choked the tune of his voice when he'd spit out his nostalgic monologues.
We go out with this blast, this gust of wind catapulting us across the house when we'd open a door or a window.
Papa was romanticizing one evening.
The smell of barbecue brisket floated on up to the clouds, where in the skyline this smoky fog was produced. The freezing temperature made it all the worth when the arms of the flames would hug me in a comforting, radiating blaze.
Papa was the storyteller, and this retelling would be words Jackson never forgot, even down to the inflections Papa spoke with. It put Jackson in a hopeless state. It made him feel for the first time something was missing, and that something would never be reached again. You could say Jackson was the ultimate prize. His mother would say so. Jackson was the trophy for those who fought prior. His existence was a glorification, memorabilia, a memento. He, as his own figure, wasn't real. His conscience was, after all, manufactured, hand-picked by the authorities around him. He was simply there to live out the legacy of his superiors. He was shiny, though. But with that, the smallest marking of incorrect manner would drive his shiners to the brink of tyranny and madness. Jackson wanted what his papa had. What the man lived through echoed exploration, adventure, excitement. In the real world, not everything was settled like it would be later in this new digital realm. Papa passed not too long after that, and this broke Jackson more so than it had broken Frederic. That last gasp of palpability soon vanished, before Jackson really got the chance to hear the tales of real reality. Trust me, I know that sounds redundant.
It was 5 years before they announced Project Existence.
Papa started another one of his stories.
That would have been 2071. Shit, seems like ages ago now. Thompson and I at that time were together. See, he was born in 2046, right? That would have made him just 1 year older than me.
Yeah, Dad.
I miss that kid. He was my best friend. Thompson was the one who encouraged me to join the digital realm. He had worked for the military and was privy to inside scoop on this new invention. He ideally referred to it as eternal existence. We both were going to join it. We were both going to live this new world together. He got me in the prototype program. He said he'd join not long after. Why did he have to get in that car wreck?
Frederic would have, if he could, put his hand on his father's shoulder, if he still had one.
Where is the real world, Papa?
Jackson asked with laser focus engagement.
It's gone, buddy. Long gone. But I can still feel. You may not, but I can. I can still feel that wind. I can still feel myself. And most importantly, I can still feel him. Feel Thompson. We truly were the last real generation.
Pops, am I not real?
Frederic paused with somber qualms. Other times he would have scrutinized his father for degrading his boy so bluntly, but even he possessed a melancholic aura after Papa said what he said. This haunting truth permeated their charcoal-colored profiles. Frederic at some point finally said something, but nothing necessarily definitive or reassuring. He referred to his boy as
Jack. You are my Jack. You're real to me.
This yucky feeling infected Jackson's conscience then. The equivalent of a wet, frost-bitten towel cloaking itself around Jackson's self-imagined flesh. And next, Jackson thought to himself he'd rather feel the pain of real flesh than just imagining it. Any sensation, good or bad, meant a lifetime's worth of actually existing. Papa, with enough traumatic stimulation, began a novel-length speech.
The government gave everyone until 2086, 10 years' time, to transition into this new digital realm. Starting June of that year, they would be bombing the physical population. They justified it by saying that it was economically, biologically, chemically, and financially safer. That it was in the best interest of not only the country, but for the globe, to fully adopt and embrace this new world. Fucking liars.
How long were you in the realm before you created Dad's conscience?
Jackson kept on. He was imagining he had elbows, and that they were planted like stanchions to support his imaginary chin, which to him was positioned upright.
Was it 2077?
Yeah.
Frederic concluded, and then he ended up wrapping that particular visit earlier than expected when he put his father on mute then. He could tell Jackson was spooked up and down and all around. November 8th, 2123. It wouldn't be for another 2 years when a 9-year-old Jackson brought the subject of Papa up to his father. The conversation took place in Territory 14589, where this yucky feeling resurrected itself as soon as Jackson entered on through. After receiving the notification, Frederic muted any and all who weren't his son. This talk would be mounted as the catalyst for what was to transpire in the future.
Hey, Pops, can I talk to you about something personal?
Sure, buddy. Whatever it is, you can go ahead.
Why is Papa dead?
Jack, why are you thinking that?
How come we get to live forever and not Papa?
Papa chose not to live forever.
Why? Why would he choose to die? Was it something that we did?
No! Baby, I want you to get that out of your head. It's not anyone's fault. You hear me?
What does it mean to see a person? What did Papa mean by feeling someone? Don't I feel?
Yes! Yes, you feel! You're just as real, just as loved, just as family like all the rest of us. Like Papa was.
Did he not feel loved?
I don't know, baby, I don't know. But whether he felt it or not, he was. He was loved. By you, by me, by Mom, by a lot of people. I think he just got tired.
Are we gonna get tired?
We're gonna live forever. That's what this whole world is. A chance for us to grasp infinity.
March 24th, 2131. Jackson's conscience remained elsewhere for a good chunk of elapsed time. He eventually did return to the present, where he and his dad were confronted with the burdensome veracity of Jackson. If it all was because of his own accord, or by designed wiring, no more was spoken, just as much as what was left of the real world, until Frederic vehemently catechized his son with,
Jack, what is the matter?
With ghoulish fixation, Jackson retorted,
Nothing. Nothing is matter. Not you. Not me. Not anything anymore.
Jackson's voice was starting to give out. Maybe it was due to his quickly spreading apathy. Maybe it was due to his slowly disintegrating spirit. Whatever was the cause, it allowed for this impalpable parasite to eat the rest of his decayed conscience. It hurt him. It hurt him bad, and he wanted it to stop. Just stop.
I don't matter.
Jackson tragically stated as he went up and down and all around, up and down and all around, up and down and all around. This vertigo-like mindset formed a flashing instability of all his memories, jumbled into one deformed, monstrous merge. And worst of all, he had nowhere to run from it. This is what he faced, 24/7, as long as he was consciously aware. The next thing Jackson said to his father would be the scariest utterance Frederic ever heard from his own son, because they both knew how sickly ill it meant. Jackson's voice, now timid and froggy, played the tune of these dying words.
I'm tired too, Dad.
Tell, Can't Show. Written and edited by Greyson Gibson. Audio mastered by Umer Saqib. Alexa Bell as young Jackson. Emily Christine as Bianca. Zane Ellenwood as Frederic. Jessica Jacobs as Isabelle. Simon Skinner as Teenage Jackson. Tim Stephenson as Papa. And Thomas Rose as the narrator. Music provided by bensound.com.